Okay, let's get started. Um, Thank you for attending my webinar this afternoon. I entitled it, Am I Extraordinary? And it's an overview of the criteria to qualify for the EB-1A Extraordinary Ability Visa. What you'll get out of this webinar is by the end, I'm hoping you will have a clearer idea of whether you qualify. There's a lot of misinformation out there. So I'm hoping you'll have a clearer idea at the end. I'll take Q&A for about 5 or 10 minutes as well. So I'll run through all the criteria. I'll briefly touch on some, provide some insight on each of the criteria. Okay, so let's start. First, my name is Priya Alagiri. I'm the founder of the Alagiri Immigration Law Firm. One of our practice areas is the EB-1A Extraordinary Ability Visa, as well as the O1 Extraordinary Ability Visas. We have an entire practice area just focused on the EB-1A visa. Okay, so just generally, before I get into the criteria, what you should know is that any EB-1A applicant has to show extraordinary ability in one of the 5 areas listed here. 1, sciences, arts, education, business, or athletics. There is flexibility in each of these. We're able to get most applicants into one of these fields. The other thing to keep in mind is that unless you have a world-renowned achievement, such as an Olympic medal, a Nobel Prize, or an Oscar, for example, all applicants have to meet at least 3 of the following 10 criteria. And most EB-1A applicants, of course, would be trying to qualify by meeting one of these criteria. So let me run through the criteria. The first one is awards. So you have to have received a either national or internationally recognized award for excellence. The 2 things to keep in mind is that school awards typically do not count. So if you've received an award from your graduate studies, typically that would not count as an award. And then secondly, the award that you will receive must be for excellence in your particular field. So whatever field we're choosing for your extraordinary ability, the awards must be in that field. Second, there's confusion about this criteria. So published material about you. The published material first has to be about you, not your accomplishments or achievements. Secondly, the published material has to be in a major trade publication or other type of major media. Blogs wouldn't count, for example. So keep in mind, again, the material has to be featuring you, and as opposed to your achievements. Okay, third, membership. So this criteria requires membership in associations which demand outstanding achievement. So right off the bat, any association that simply requires a subscription, a payment to become a member would not count. These associations really have to be selective. They have to have selective criteria. And when we file the applications, we provide the selection criteria. So the immigration officer will know what exactly, was required to become a member of the association. With that in mind, though, there's a lot of creativity for defining what is an association. There are, there's wiggle room, there's creativity, and we've been able to make arguments about, what is an association and how someone would fit, would qualify as a member. Okay, number 4, judging the work of others. Some of it is obvious. It requires showing evidence of peer review of papers, serving on editorial boards, similar types of activities, but also, for example, you can think outside the box, and judging could also be reviewing work of high-level employees in an organization. So there is room for what's considered judging. The 5th criteria is original contributions. So most of our applications would require an explanation of original contribution. So there's 2 parts in this one criteria. First, the contribution must be unique. It must be novel. Secondly, it has to be of major impact in the field. Oftentimes, USCIS will say, yes, the contribution is unique, maybe even groundbreaking, but then what they'll say is there's been no impact in the field. So we do have to show both those parts. And we can show impact through such things as publications, clinical trials, maybe, again, thinking outside the box, proof that others have used your work, especially if they're high level and they're noteworthy in their own, in your field as well. Okay, so number 6. Authorship. This is probably what most people know about the EB-1A, authorship of scholarly articles in professional or major trade publications. So, of course, the publications should be in your field, and where the articles are published are critical. They should be noteworthy in your field. So, it doesn't have, not everyone needs to know the name of it, but if everyone in your particular field knows about this journal, then that would lend a lot of weight. Again, thinking outside the box, we would use sometimes conference presentations. If the conference is noteworthy, are well known in your particular field and you were asked to present, we would include your conference presentations. Number 7. This is another popular one that we include in most EB-1A applications. And this one criteria also has 2 parts to it. So first, we would have to show that you performed or are performing a leading or critical role. And then secondly, that you are performing that role in a distinguished organization. So showing leading or critical, there's, again, room for flexibility and creativity. Critical typically means a significant role in an institution or company. So significant role meaning you may not have people reporting to you, but what you're working on is critical to the company, and you're relied upon to move whatever project you're doing, to move it forward, and it would have a huge impact on the organization. Second, leading typically means, in my experience with USCIS, it seems this is how they view it, is that it means supervisory or managerial role. So again, if you have subordinates who are high level, you could qualify as a leader or leading role. Sometimes you're both critical and leading. And so the second part of this criteria is that you have to show that you held or are holding these roles in a distinguished organization. So again, there's creativity around what's a distinguished organization. Sometimes universities, we can show, that they're distinguished, companies, sometimes startups, things like that. But that's the second prong of this one criteria. Okay, number 8, salary. When we file our applications, we always make an argument for compensation, that you have a high salary in comparison to others in the field. And we will look at your job duties, we will look at your occupation, and then we will compare those to, salary, like wage surveys, and things like that, to show that your wage is high in comparison to others in the field. We will look across the country and show wages paid to others performing similar duties. We're typically able to make an argument here work. We don't have to look at just salary. We can look at stock, shares, bonuses, things like that. So, and any, other type of compensation to show that you command a high salary or compensation. The next two are more for artists, maybe actors, singers, designers. Sometimes, we can show creativity here, as well as who would qualify under this criteria: photographers, anybody who displays their work, showcases their work, would qualify under this criteria. So we would, in making this argument, we would include the selection criteria for the, wherever you showcased or exhibited your work, to show that it's highly selective, it's highly competitive to showcase your work at this exhibition. And then we would also include details about how prominent this showcase or exhibition is, for example, in your particular field. So we're able to meet, this category. We can think outside the box. And the last one, again, relates to performing and showing success that you've had in your industry. So we would provide evidence, like media articles about the performances, maybe about you in the performance, awards you've won, ticket sales, those type of things. And that's more if you are selling your services, like in the industry. So that was a brief run through of the 10 criteria. You have to meet 3, as I mentioned. And I think the one thing to keep in mind in looking at the 10 criteria is that you always have to be meeting the criteria in your particular field. You know, sometimes people win awards, but it's not in what you're and not in your extraordinary ability, or there you had a publication but it wasn't in your field. So when you look at the 10 criteria, make sure every single one that you analyze is in your particular field. It's not like a hodgepodge of different type of awards, or from a different number of fields. The other thing to keep in mind is meeting these 3 criteria is not enough to be granted the EB-1A visa. It's the first step of a 2-step process. I may do a webinar on the second step of the process, but I can very briefly explain it to you here. So after you meet, or after the Immigration Service decides you've met 3 out of those 10 criteria, they will perform a second step analysis, which is to look at your entire package, your entire application, all the evidence, all the arguments we've made. They'll look at all of that to see if granting you the EB-1A visa or green card is in the best interest of the US. So this is when we do our applications, we spend a lot of time on this second part. There's obviously a lot of subjectivity on what's in the US's best interest, but that it's very critical, because a lot of people can maybe meet those 3 criteria, but if they don't show, or in the application, that looking at the whole the totality of the circumstances, which is what USCIS, that terminology, if looking at the totality of the evidence, circumstances, then if they don't feel it would be in the US's best interest to grant you the green card, your application will be denied. So I want to point that out. But today I just wanted to talk about the first step of meeting the 3 criteria. So the next, if you had questions about whether you qualify, hopefully you have a better idea after this webinar. But we would be happy to talk to you further. You can give us a call on the number on the screen, or you can email us. And then now we have some time, a few minutes left for Q&A. So I won't be able to answer any case specific questions, but if you have general questions about the EB-1A, I'd be happy to answer them. I'll give some people some time to ask your questions. You can ask them in the chat right here in Zoom. So okay, we have a question about awards. So I'll just read the question out loud. Regarding awards, does this have to be an award from a third party, or do employer awards also count? Okay, so if you look at the criteria for the awards, it has to be a nationally or internationally recognized awards. So if you're working for a company that's highly distinguished, well-known, and it was objective criteria in granting the award, we can try and make a case that you would qualify. But if it's, I mean, it would have to be a very competitive award in your company to have received it. Second question is, do you have examples of the types of artists who have gone through this route? I mean, yes. I mean, most of they're on TV, but there are also people, you know, behind the scenes that have qualified. I mean, artists can be many different things. It could be people who are in the background, you know, doing production, video editing. As long as you're known in your particular field, the field doesn't have to be nationally known. I mean, there are lots of subfields that would, you know, you could make a case. Any other questions? Okay, if there are no more questions, our time is nearly up. As I mentioned, please give our office a call. We'd be happy to answer your questions. We have a lot of experience in EB-1A. It's one of our major practice areas. I hope this webinar was helpful. I hope it, you know, it gave you a clearer idea of this category. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.